Well, welcome everybody to Data Science and Technologies. Again, I'm Dr. Liz Pierce, and I'm webcasting from EIT 220. Very good. And Lynn, thank you very much for the confirmation that the audio is up and working. Yes, definitely flag me if there are any visual or audio issues. So what we're doing is we actually are going to we went from looking at data science for things like numbers, counts, measurements, where you have categories. That is, you have a qualitative variable that is able to take on certain categories or labels for an entity. And that was last week. And of course, that is very much, if you've taken statistics, that is the traditional territory of statistics, predictive models. But as we mentioned, the world of data has now expanded well beyond just numbers and measurements and labels. We now have, well, the estimates vary, 80 to 90% of the data being generated is what we call unstructured. And for me, unstructured simply means it's data that does not fit very well into a traditional Excel spreadsheet. And so we're now working on text analytics. And we kind of jumped ahead. Dr. Dagtas will be presenting next week. And one of the things that is different about this year's class is I really wanted to devote more time to unstructured data. And certainly one source or category of unstructured data is text. And so what we did on Tuesday is we took a look at the natural language toolkit from Python. I also sent out an announcement on Tuesday, recapping the lecture, but also mentioning that natural language toolkit now has some competition. There is another Python text library out there called Spacey. And so now you have another choice, looking at natural language toolkit versus Spacey. And so if you check your announcements, I have a link to a blogger who was talking about, what are sort of the pros and cons of natural language toolkit versus Spacey, and when might you want to use one versus the other. All right. So we did a little demonstration of how you can use Python in order to work with text. And we saw, some of the common operations that you would do with text, being able to take your sentences and, look for various words or types of words, or trying to look for certain patterns in your words. I want to just make sure, since we often will run out of time at the end of the period, so for your next tutorial, and again, you're free to do your tutorials in many different orders, but some of the things that you can take a look at when it comes to text analytics. Now, Cognitive Class does have a course in Text Analytics 101. This is, let me just see, sometimes they tell us when they've updated. Oh, this is very interesting. So we mentioned using Python to query your text. There are also packages out there that will help you work with your text. And so IBM actually has a set of tools, and they actually have developed what they call AQL which is essentially so like an annotation query language. And so this Text 101 is kind of interesting. If you're looking for an alternative to Python and you're just curious, if I wanted to invest in a text analytics package, what are some of the capabilities I might get in that package? And again, I would not worry too much about the labs, but just do the videos and the questions, and you should be able to get your certificates. And I was going to say, this one is this is one that we're seeing more and more. These recurrent neural networks. And again, this is from the Skills Network. So this may be more of I was going to say, this looks like a more advanced course. You may want to take a look. They say 3 hours. I was going to say, I suspect that maybe to get the most of this, again, you have to buy one of IBM's packages, so WatsonX.ai. But again, you are perfectly fine to take a look at a couple of these tutorials, start into them, and if they start to say, yeah, this is too much lab, or this is going to be too much work, yeah, you can definitely switch to a different tutorial. And sometimes it's just fun to just window shop, saying, well, I'm going to do an easier tutorial for the homework, but I'll make a note that I'm kind of interested in going back when I have more time to look at some of these other tools. When it comes to text analytics, Cognitive Class did not, they don't have as much as they do in other areas. So I've kind of expanded to some of the applications where you are using text. And certainly chatbots is an area where we are essentially making use of text analytics, text mining, also getting into the AI area. And again, you might find if you've been curious about, what are the tools or techniques, just how is it that, when I go to a website, they have a chatbot, pop up? How did they program that? How do they test it, design it? That's a very interesting area. And this one, prompt engineering, that is getting to be, again, take a look, check out the labs. They say this is the part that goes out of date so quickly, but hopefully the labs have a lot of videos to them, so that enables you to complete the quizzes. Okay. But again, you just need to do one. So just kind of skim through these and find one that sounds good. And as I say, some of they range everything from beginning to intermediate and advanced. You're fine to just stick with the beginnings. So let me just pause. Any questions on the text analytics? And again, if you're getting into midterms with your other classes, this particular week 8 isn't due until March. So you do have some time if you've got to switch gears and do some midterm studying. All right. Well, what I wanted to do today, again, the main thing I would love students to be able to do is pick an aspect of, let me start off. I would love students to pick a problem or a challenge where they'd like to analyze data associated with that problem and challenge. So again, maybe there's something you want to explore. Maybe you're interested in trying to find correlations or associations. Maybe you're interested in trying to do a prediction or classification, or maybe you're trying to be able to recommend a optimal solution. And I was going to say, your project might involve, more analysis. In some cases, students might be interested in focusing on trying to create maybe an interactive dashboard. Uh, Other people might be interested in trying to develop some sort of application. So maybe you're curious, maybe you'd like to try developing a chatbot, or maybe you'd like to experiment with uh, some of the up and coming AI tools to see, well, what if I wanted to create something that will, you know, I'm hungry for, can I get something that will recommend a list of restaurants? Uh, so, so I really want folks to use the early part of the semester to really kind of think of ideas. And you're welcome as you're trying to think of ideas. If you'd like to kind of look forward in the course and to say, well, here, let me look at social media. Let me look at large language models. Let me look at text. Let me look at numbers. Let me look at some of the different types of data that's out there. Maybe I want to look at images. Maybe I want to look at sound to kind of figure out. Oh, and then we had a question on a week set. Oh, the image. Oh, yes. Now, Manisha, we haven't gotten to the working with images, but basically, just for a quick preview for the image challenge, what I'd like you to do for the image assignment is show me the image you started off with, and you should start off, for example, with a colored image. And yes, what I'd like you to do is show me the code that you use to produce the desired output. And I was going to say that's all I'll say for right now, because if we switch to image analysis, we won't finish our text analysis. So we'll take it one step at a time. But a quick answer is you should document basically how you got your results. And we'll talk more about the image challenge assignment. And notice we've got a couple weeks before we get to it. So in that case, I was going to say, just hang in there and we will eventually get to that. Okay. All right. So one of the things I thought I would do is talk a little bit about, okay, so when we talk about text mining, and again, this kind of links back to the project discussion, what is it that folks want to do with text mining? And so let's take a look. Maybe the best example is to start off with a look at how some folks are trying to use text mining in their businesses. Okay. Okay. So what might companies want to do when it comes to text mining? So one motivation for text mining is that there's a lot of information in text. And so it may be that companies want to sift through materials because they are trying to identify, I want to say, potential dangers or issues that if they react to early, they can be able to reduce their risk. And what example can I give you in this area? I was going to say pharmaceutical companies may, for example, want to be going to various like Reddit or Facebook or various blogging sites to see if anybody is reporting any unusual complications or side effects with medication. So, pharmaceutical companies, they develop a drug, they test it in the clinical trials, but then they release it out. And of course, once it gets out to the public, you're not talking about hundreds or thousands of people. You could be having millions of people, and sometimes there are side effects or issues that they did not uncover in their clinical trial. For example, they may have an interaction that they didn't know about, that if you take this drug and you're big into grapefruit, you all of a sudden start to develop a kidney issue. So one thing that an industry might want to do is to be able to go through, and you can imagine social media, the blogging sites, you have a lot of people communicating, sharing information. It's a huge volume. And you can imagine it's too much for human beings. It's like an ocean. But if you could design some sort of text mining that would go out and screen through thousands and hundreds of thousands of blogs looking for interesting comments related to the drug, then it can pull out those items and put them aside so that then an analyst could look at them more closely to say, oh, is this a potential side effect that we didn't know about? And if we can catch it early, you can see how it reduces the risk. The sooner you catch those issues, the sooner you can get the word out to the public, to doctors, make changes, and of course that reduces, the potential for these large class action lawsuits. Okay, and knowledge management. So another reason why you might be looking through lots and mountains of text is sometimes you can learn interesting information. So going back to the pharmaceutical companies, they're not only looking for side effects or complaints or issues with their products, but sometimes they will find that a drug, designed for one purpose, has a secondary benefit. So, for example, Viagra is a great example of a drug that was originally developed to deal with circulatory issues. And what they found, actually this they discovered in clinical trials, that while it was a so-so drug when it came to treating circulatory issues, it turned out it was a very good drug when treating erectile dysfunction. And that was one of the side effects that male patients were reporting during the clinical trials. And, when a side effect is positive, then it becomes an opportunity for marketing. So sometimes you'll have a drug and it ends up that, one of the benefits is it clears up skin, or maybe one of the benefits is it helps with weight loss. And so again, a lot of times, a lot of text mining, sometimes it's targeted. Sometimes we know exactly, we're looking for phone numbers, we're looking for addresses, we're looking for certain things. But sometimes we're just interested in knowing what things are associated with our product. And we don't really know what they are, but if folks are talking about them in conjunction with our product, we want to know what it is they're talking about. Okay. Cybercrime prevention. So again, a lot of times, law enforcement, cybersecurity folks, you can imagine trying to go through emails in your organizations to try to figure out what are patterns in phishing emails. So again, difficult for one person or a group of people just to keep up with all those emails. Looking for evidence of, well, really, for whatever type of crime that you're looking for. You can imagine that, if you're monitoring a chat group, yeah, there's a lot of activity going along. Do you see somebody sending texts that indicate an inappropriate, communication that you want to be alert on? Are you seeing any texts that match the pattern of a scam? Do you see any evidence of fraud in your text documents? So this is another application of text mining, trying to use it to look for threats and. And Dennis was saying cybercrime prevention is a rather growing field for this. And you can imagine, this is how I know a lot of times, you got your spam folder. It's basically, what is your spam folder doing? It's got an agent that, when email comes in, it's checking to see, does it trigger the spam flag? And if it does, it puts it in the spam folder. And, you can go into your spam folder and, say, no, this was a Microsoft communication. It's okay. But yes, you can think about it. And really the theme of all of these text mining is this is not a problem when I only have, a small stack of papers. If you have a small stack of emails, a small stack of customer complaints, you can run through that by hand. It's the issue of the overwhelming amount. Enhanced customer service. Again, they mentioned the chat bots, but also you can see looking through. And you might say, well, some of the surveys, you're ranking stuff 1 to 10, but a lot of times surveys allow room for comments, trouble tickets, customer call notes. Those are all things, again, and it's the volume. And so what you're trying to do is figure out how you can think of it as a sifting operation. You've got all of this oceans of stuff to go through. And what you're trying to do is find some useful nuggets, some useful pieces of information that will give you actionable insights. Another area is into streamline claims. Policy review, helping with claims automation, I was going to say this claims investigation, this is an area, you get into text mining and it's just a small jump away from large language models and AI. Now, in terms of, this is not so much claims investigation, but I had a chance last fall to talk with Brett Trofa, who is the Chief Information Officer at Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield. And he was mentioning that they have built an application. So when somebody submits a pending claim, they think, my doctor has suggested I get a hip replacement. Will that be covered by my policy? And the way the workflow would work is a nurse would look at your medical claim information, and then she, your past history, and then she would look at, your request, and then the nurse would have to put together this letter explaining, yes, it's been approved, or no, it has been denied. And the nurses, putting together these letters was time consuming. And so what Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield had done is they had worked, and as I say, we'll get to this. I'm going to see if I can get some good material. But there are products like a lane chain that allow you to essentially do generative AI, and they used a product like this that would allow them to have it to look through the claim information and to be able to assess the information against their list of rules that they had for satisfying, whether the claim was good or not. And they had programmed this this product to produce a letter. And so what was so wonderful and is that for the nurse, she would get the application would generate the form letter, and it would have the client's name, their address, and it was programmed to provide very complete explanations. It had been trained to speak without using any fancy acronyms or medical terms. And basically what the letter would say, dear so-and-so, we received your request to, review for a hip replacement operation. In reviewing your medical history, we do not see any evidence that you have completed step therapy. And it would go and it would explain that, step therapy, we found that, 65% of the folks who complete step therapy find that they do not need hip replacement. And then it would nicely kind of inform them of the next steps, that they will need to take to either, demonstrate, yes, they have completed the step therapy and it didn't work, or, recommending that they get the step therapy and then, reapply if it's not successful. And so this was kind of a melding of AI, and it would mine the information, from the claims. It would feed it into this generative AI that would then put forth this really nice letter. And then what the nurse could do, and this is what made the nurses so happy, is now they just needed to review the claim, and they just needed to read through the letter to make sure that it was accurate. And if they said, yep, the letter is a good reflection, or the letter's almost correct, it just needs a little corrections here and there, boom, 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 I'll make the edits, boom, we'll formalize it, we'll send it off. And this was a win-win. The doctors and patients were so happy because now they were getting responses to their claims, where before they would have to wait a couple weeks. Now they were getting a response in days. Blue Cross Blue Shield was happy because now their available claim staff was much better able to keep up with the volume of claims. And the nurses were happy because the part of the job that they found really tedious was having to write these letters. And it was so much easier to have a generative AI produce a really nice letter to start off with, that they only had to make, review, and if necessary, make some tweaks to. But there's an example where, we're going to have some areas like the claim processing that, are really going to be revolutionized by this combination of the text mining and then merging it, marrying it with the generative AI. Contextual advertising. I see this all the time on the internet. I will look up something that's of interest to me. Maybe I was, I was interested in maybe, it's about time for me to get a new lawnmower. So I was, Googling for lawnmowers. And then I go into YouTube, and you know what all the ads that are now popping up for me? They're all about lawnmowers. So this contextual advertising, yes, is basically, you just have to read an article about a topic, and all of a sudden you get an ad related to that topic. Okay. And of course, a lot of times we have a combination. For some reason, okay. Yeah, so a lot of times you have both text and structured data. And we see this a lot, for example, when Dr. Nitin Agarwal, when they do their web scraping. Okay, so they're scraping comments. But in addition to the comments, they're also picking up structured data. So they have things like the username, they have the date, they have the time. There are things that they can pick up, like did that comment get any likes or dislikes? And so it is very common now that when you do your analysis, yes, you have some structured data that fits nicely into a spreadsheet, but then you may have associated with that record is some document or some blog or some group of text. And yeah, a lot of times, they are then looking at patterns, trying to look at things like sentiment, the energy level, the toxicity level, all kinds of things that you might want to capture about that text. And then you're asking questions like, does the sentiment vary with the day, with the season, with the time? Are there, is it varies? What are the patterns with the users, or can we get a location off of the IP address and things like that? And so again, now in terms of our traditional, we want to look for associations, we want to make predictions, we want to classify things. You're seeing that mix of the things that we can measure or collect about that text, as well as the text content itself and any metadata associated with the text. Can be used for content enrichment and content enrichment for me, is typically, you have, I'll give you an example, certain data about your customer. And so you may have their transaction history, their name, their address, as you say, you've got their billing and shipping history. But a lot of times, again, companies want to improve their marketing. They're interested in what other things that they can collect about their customers. So, for example, I remember having a conversation with the folks at Axiom, which gather data for marketing purposes. And it's very interesting. They were less concerned as to whether someone was a male or a female. Because for marketing purposes, what they wanted to know is, how do you feel? Do you identify yourself as female? Do you identify yourself as male? Because it's the way you perceive yourself, that's how we want to market to you. So this was an example where, they might be very interested, whether it's from survey information or whether it is from being able to gather information about people to say, oh, this individual really identifies themselves as, I don't know, an antique roadshow enthusiast, or this person really identifies them as an outdoor or as an environmentalist. And that's interesting information that they may want to keep in their customer records to better, again, kind of ties back into how we market. And we mentioned the spam filtering, and yes, and we mentioned we are going to be taking a look at I'm hoping to get some speakers from Cosmos. But this is an area that started out in text mining. So Dr. Agrawal, back in, 2006 to 2009, when he was a PhD student, he was working with text. He was working with comments and blogs. But they have been busy developing a whole bunch of tools, because one of the things they're saying is, now it's, the internet is not just blogs. It's pictures, it's videos, it's sound. And so Cosmos is now developing a variety of tools for not only analyzing the text context on the web, but the video content. And again, this will tie in very nicely with what Dr. Dagtus is going to talk to us about, multimedia analysis. But originally, if you go back, almost, it's hard to believe, 2025, if you go back 20 years ago, the internet was much more text-based, and now it's much more multimedia, which is why, getting back to Manisha, yes, that's why we're going to have to talk a little bit about image analytics, but we'll do it one step at a time. Okay. But anyway, look through some of these ideas, because there's a lot of, you can just Google text mining applications, and you can get a host of ideas. Companies have used text mining to look through patents, for example, maybe looking for potential buyers for certain types of intellectual property. So they look at who's generating and who's buying the patents, and then they say, well, we're getting into this particular area, and there are millions of patents. We really like our analysts to be able to have something go through these patents, and then be able to give us a list of, well, here are the top 20 people or organizations in this area that are very interested in this type of technology. Or maybe we're looking for the top 50. Okay. So that gives you kind of some ideas. And let's take a look here. Okay. This is a pretty good article. It was last updated about a year ago. Yes, and for folks in the classroom, yes, if you want to just switch into Blackboard, we're still working out our glitches in EIT 220. Curtis Dowd is coming back this afternoon. The next thing they're going to try is putting in a new switch. But we also have computers at the back of the room if you just, want to be able to see the screen. Yeah, so text mining. Now, some people are real fussy, and they say, well, you have one, text mining is sort of the extraction of the text, and then text analytics is the analysis of the text. A lot of times people use these interchangeably because it's hard to do one without the other. So, but this shows you some of the terminology. And this right here is a good picture. Let's see if we can. Let me just open the image in a new tab. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Okay. So typically with text mining, we start off with data collection. And sometimes you'll hear folks talking about developing a corpus. And a corpus is just a collection of text files. So it may be a collection of emails, a collection of patents. It might be a collection of customer complaints or survey responses. It could be a collection of historical documents, anything that has essentially been digitized. So now you have this collection, and typically some of the things that you will see is the text pre-processing, and there can be a lot of work in working with a text. So, for example, we saw that, how do you want to handle punctuation? What about lowercase versus uppercase? Often, of course, we have language considerations, but certainly within the English language, maybe we want to just focus on, for example, standardizing entities. So a great example, if you're looking for things related to the University of Arkansas Little Rock. University of Arkansas at Little Rock has lots of different names. You've got UA Little Rock. You have UA LR. You could have University of Arkansas at Little Rock, University of Arkansas of Little Rock, University of Arkansas Little Rock. So you can have all these variations on the name. And so thinking about how you're going to kind of standardize that, we saw on Tuesday the use of stemming, because a lot of times, we're interested in, let me put it this way, when it comes to verbs or actions, we don't need all the different verb tenses. We just need to know it was give, not giving, not gives. So there's a lot of things that we may want to do. Removing stop words, getting rid of the ofs, the ands, the ons, the ofs, the buts. We're actually trying to remove some of these, if you will, noisy words, because we're really just interested in the main nouns or the main verbs. And then we mentioned that a lot of times we want to be able, tokenization, we saw that, where you take a sentence and you pull it apart so you can get the individual words. Or maybe you're starting off with the document and you want to pull out the main sections. From the main sections, you want to pull out the various paragraphs. From the paragraphs, you want to pull out the sentences. From the sentences, you want to pull out off the words. So it's kind of like, so what size tokens do you want to look at? The compound word identification. Yes, we talked about University of Arkansas at Little Rock, UA Little Rock. We want often the text is not just these one word. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 word phrases that we are looking for. And so that's a complication. So you can think of situations where we may, we say things like raining like cats and dogs. And so, so a lot of times it's not just the individual words, it's the fact that certain words together, this 2 words together or 3 words together is very important. We can kind of see that even things like I am not happy. The not happy, it's really important, if you're just if you just see the word happy in the sentence, you might say, oh, that's very positive. And it's looking for the not in front of the happy that tells you, oh, That's actually the reverse. So we often have that problem that you just can't look one word at a time. Sometimes you have to look at word groupings. We mentioned the normalizations, the stemming and trying to uh, take things that we feel are the same thing in the text and basically relabeling it so it does appear as the same thing to the text analytics. The entity recognition. A lot of times we do want to be able to identify things like person, place, thing. This is a telephone number. This is a geographical location. This is a city. This is a state. Um, and then the parts of speech tagging. So we actually saw that, an example of that on Tuesday, where you may want to know this is a noun, this is a verb, this is an adjective, this is an adverb. And then what we have is the various techniques we have. Once we've done all this preparation, then we want to do the analysis. Are we looking for the main themes? Are we trying to summarize? Are we trying to look for various indicators? And so they have listed, some of the different techniques that are out there, from content, from comparing to dictionaries. That's often used, for example, in sentiment analysis. We have a list of happy words, we have a list of sad words, we have a list of angry words, and this is how we can have the computer classify text. And then, number of different algorithmic techniques. Okay, and then of course it is what we're trying to do. Is this a standalone analysis? What is it actually that we're looking for? Are we looking to extract person, address, phone information to integrate it with our customer relationship management system? For Dr. Agrawal, often they are looking for things like the sentiment. They're looking for toxicity. They're also looking for patterns that might indicate that somebody is trying to influence or disseminate a particular message. So often Cosmos has gotten very involved because many companies are finding, not many companies, many countries are finding that they can, for example, influence somebody's election, either their own or somebody else's, through the messages that they are putting out there. So, trying to understand, what messages are coming from what sources has become a big deal. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So let me just see. We've got a little bit. And so this is. Let me just kind of take a look here. So, but this is a nice overview of some of the text mining techniques. And so this is a really nice article. I tell you what, let me try to touch on some of my other material, but is I definitely encourage you, go ahead and at your leisure, just kind of read through this article. And as I say, I may jump back here, but let me just, I wanted to also show you this one as well. This one from Duke Library has some really nice resources. And so the previous article, excellent overview. Definitely put that on your reading list for this week. But I wanted to make sure I got over to this Duke because, again, if you're looking to do a text mining project, this Duke site has a lot of, for example, sources for where you can find various types of text, from news sources, Wikipedia, there's movies, there's American literature, Google Books. So you can kind of think about, where might I gather up some text? And then again, they have some nice resources on overviews and summaries. Okay. And then they've got, again, a big part of text mining is having to go through and do all the cleaning and the parsing. And they've got, what's nice is they've got, again, they've got some tools and resources here, depending on sort of what you're doing. They've got Google Refine. They have certain tools. Oh, and again, some of these stuff. Yeah. Again, tools like Spacey and Natural Language Toolkit, in their libraries, they have a variety of functions for cleaning. But if you're saying, well, wait a second, if I'm, are there some tools that can, help me? There are some, APIs. There are some various tools to help you with those tasks. And notice they've got some for Windows, and they also have, what is this one? Am I thinking of Tidyverse and R? Oh, I think Tidyverse is actually just for regular data. Yeah, cleaning up regular data. But I was going to say, typically, let's take a look at your, let me put it this way. They had the suggestion that, yes, a lot of times the decision of what you have to clean up is tied to how you're going to analyze with your data. And so, but again, this kind of gives an idea. We saw one of the first things you may be interested in a piece of text is the word frequency. Which words are used most often. There, a lot of times in literature, sometimes people will look at an author and they'll look at the author's use of language to kind of try to understand how that author's, maybe their language choices, was it consistent over their career, or did their use of certain words or phrasing, did it change? We mentioned the fact that you might be looking at words that commonly appear near each other, or you may be trying to identify the context of given words or set of words. And then you may be trying to extract or figure out common 2, 3, 4, 5-letter phrasings. You may be, again, we talked about the entity resolution, or you may be, trying to tag specific sets of words in the text. So those are just some basics, if you will, text analytics. But things, more sophisticated things we want to do is, for example, search engines. Trying to figure out, based on your search request, what are the documents, web pages, whatever, that are the closest relevant match to what you asked for. Maybe you're trying to help people with, for example, trying to guess what sort of styles or genres or things they might be interested in. In some cases, we have a list of, of information about what people are interested in, and we're trying to cluster them into various interest groups. Sometimes we want to analyze political speeches. Let me see if this link is this is from Google's books. You can actually play around with this. This is looking at over the last 200 years. It's looking for 3 different people: Frankenstein, Sherlock Holmes, and Albert Einstein. And it's kind of looking to see in terms of, I think this is their, looking through Google's corpus of its collections of, historical collections. Who do we see? Let's see. We started out, and we can kind of see, yes, Albert Einstein, he wasn't around in the 1800s, so you can see Albert Einstein, picking up in the 1920s. And then we can see sort of the evolution of Sherlock Holmes. Frankenstein is kind of interesting. Look at Frankenstein, started out, he was introduced, what was it, Shelley or whatever, in the 1800s. And he was pretty constant. And then, this is kind of interesting. I think with the movies, the advent of the movies and television, and notice today, Frankenstein, yeah, it has more mentions, or it has, more usage still in the language than Sherlock Holmes, which is, as of 2020, there's more texts referencing Sherlock Holmes and Albert Einstein. But that's interesting. I mean, in terms of studying language and how, what entities in our language, what is their popularity, or what has been their usage or indicators. And this is fun to play. You can put in other terms and just, you can set their time scale, and you can choose the smoothing level, and you can kind of ask, what are certain popularity or use of language over time. Topic modeling is a big area. Often we are trying to be able to understand, what is this document about? So you can imagine, we see this a lot, actually. Some of the things that we want to be able to do with text is, you've just written a paper, and now you have to write the abstract or the executive summary. It would be kind of nice to have a tool that will look at your paper and give you a first draft of the summary. Here's a first draft of the abstract, or, you can tell it, give me a 2-paragraph summary or a 3-paragraph summary. Again, it just makes things go faster. A lot of times now when we do research, doing a literature review has gotten a lot harder than it was years ago. I mean, you thought, well, years ago you had to go to the card catalog, but you only had limited sources for, where you would get your information. Today, there's so many conferences, so many journals, so many different places that people are publishing. Yeah, a lot of times when you're trying to research an area and you're trying to get an understanding of, I'm interested in this topic. What papers are on this topic? What are the other topics associated with this topic? We're really at the point we need some help with that. And I should mention, we'll look at this with, I was going to say, there is some AI tools out there that really help you, for example, to, and here's a nice, let me just see if we can, you can put in a topic, and you can basically it'll help you visualize the network of papers, around that topic. And it will actually even start classifying, we call it a mind map. Let me just show you what a mind map looks like. But this is often what you'd have to do manually. Let me just see, open image tab. Oh no, that's terrible. Let me find one that isn't teeny tiny. Oh, this one looks better. Okay. Oh, this is a nice example. So typically what happens in a literature review is that you're interested in researching something on health. And notice here, a mind map is a great way to kind of start organizing your literature to say, oh, if I'm looking at health, there's some major categories. Help about health, exercise, stress, sleep, and diet. And then along the diet path, you can see what are the different subtopics around diet, what are the subtopics around sleep, what are the relationship about topics from stress. Here are the topics when it comes to getting help about health. So you can imagine if you had a tool that if you were interested brainstorming ideas, for what should I do for my data science project, you can imagine how helpful it would be if you could ask for, give me a topic map on health, and it would produce something like this, so that you can say, oh, health is really big. So now maybe I want to focus on maybe I'm interested in the relationship between exercise and stress. So now maybe what I'd like to do is that's really interesting. I get stressed out. I want to know what's the best exercise or the relationship between, how much do I have to exercise to relieve stress? And now you're thinking, I wonder if anyone's published any data on, let's say, different types of exercises and how long and stress levels. And maybe I like to build a little, exercise stress dashboard that people could use to kind of plan out, what kind of exercise routine would be good for dealing with, certain stress levels. Yeah. Okay. Entity recognition, extraction, the visualizations. And what's nice is they've got some different tools and resources that you can take a look at. And there's also some web tools that you can play around with. So this is actually a pretty friendly intro. And then, of course, they've got some frequency visualizations, topic modeling visualizations. I was going to say one of my favorite, it comes from North Carolina. University, let me find it. It is, it's tweet sentiment. Okay, this is, okay. I was going to say, I'll put this in the chat. This is fun. Okay. So, if you're saying, data analysis is not my big thing, but I'd love to build something that, involves data science or involves text mining. This was a little project. It's been around. It's from North Carolina State University. And what they do is, oh, yeah, Dennis said yes. And the Duke one is actually, I'll put this in here, the Duke one is in the list of class resources. But it's so good, I'll put it in, twice. It is really good. Yeah. Yeah, this was interesting. Yes, Dennis, this one may be, what happened was when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he renamed it X. But he also he changed the pricing structure. And it used to be that you could, have a free tier, but now it's more expensive to get a hold of all that X data. But this is where you could put in a term like, let me just see, let's do Valentine's Day. That's coming up. And it would go out and find posts on the internet. And it would create a visualization. And what was kind of neat about this is they had a really nice explanation. And they actually went out to psychology. Just see. Yeah. So it's so interesting the way they generate the metadata about these posts. This is actually a model that comes out of psychology that says our emotions sort of have two main dimensions. One is how we rate from miserable to please, and then also the energy level. Like, is this a low energy emotion, or is this a high energy emotion? So, for example, excited and relaxed are both pleasant sensations, but excited conveys more energy than being relaxed. And yes, distressed is a more active unpleasantness than being depressed. So they have a very nice explanation of how they were able to take these posts, and they had a dictionary that psychology literature had developed, where they had all these individuals kind of rate various words, and then they had, what was the average rating on the pleasantness scale and on the energy scale, and what was the average of those ratings, and what was the range or the spread, and then they would basically pick out the words and basically do the statistics to get the overall average and a range of emotions. And then they had the information that they needed in order to then map the posts. And yeah, they did various things, looking at topics, looking at, sort of correlation between energy. They had various tag clouds. They would do they could do various timelines. They would look at groupings. They would look at narratives. They would look at the various posts. And yes, as Dennis mentioned, this is not working as well as it did a number of years ago. Like I look at a lot of these posts and some of them are very clear. Yeah, that has a Valentine's Day, but I'll be honest, I'm seeing some of these posts and I'm like, how did this get picked with Valentine's Day? So, so as they say, I agree with Dennis. This is not as good as it was, but you know, maybe that's an opportunity because you know, one of the things we've been saying with data science is these models we develop, they're like a carton of milk. They have an expiration date. You know, maybe this is your opportunity to get an updated, better working model out there. Okay. One other thing is this area of regular expressions. And so if you get into text mining, you'll come across this thing, regular expressions. And I was going to say, regular expressions, you can think of it is, boy, they have all these lessons, but you can see on this side right here, this is basically almost like it is a pattern language. It's a language for specifying various patterns like digits or any digits or a non-digits or any characters or a period or, you know, not this character, but, you know, this many repetitions or this amount of white space. And you might say, what the heck? Why would you need to use regular expressions? Well, it turns out you can go out and find regular expression libraries. You can come up with your own regular expressions, but there are resources out there. So let's say you're looking for phone numbers. Okay. So you may be saying, okay, I would like to look through this text. And I've got a package that will allow me to put in a regular expression. And every time it finds something that matches that pattern, it's going to, you know, I can tell it, you know, either pull out that item that matches that expression, or I can tell it, yeah, pull out the entire paragraph or pull out the entire document. But notice here, if you wanted to model international and domestic phone numbers with an extension, this is the pattern matching code. And they even give some examples of what it matches and what it will not match. And Pakistani phone numbers starting with 03. This is basically, I want to validate Russian phone numbers, mobile landline that accept a space, a dash between the numbers. So this is, there are libraries out there where people have basically used the regular expression tagging language to create the expression. So this is very nice. You can, you know, in some cases, maybe you want to create your own regular expression, but as you can see, for certain entities, like a phone number, it will find it. What are some of the other categories? Oh, looking for emails, looking for URIs, looking for dates and times, looking for addresses. So regular expressions, if you get into text mining and you say, well, how is it that they're able to pull out things like emails and phone numbers? How do they do that? One technique is you have a piece of software that recognizes regular expressions. You give it a regular expression, and then you let the thing basically go through your documents looking for those matches. Okay. So text mining is a very rich area. Think about all the text that we generate on social media. When we there's some interesting, I'll tell you another area that's very interesting. Think about all the historical documents. There are Uh, there are some services out there that take handwritten documents and convert them to text. So that's been a big boom. Think of all these historical documents. That's been one of the big jobs, taking all that script from 1800s and converting it in, we can always take a picture of it, but it's very hard to mine those pictures. So what we really want to do is extract that handwriting and convert it into plain old text so that we can then feed it in and do text mining. But that's an interesting area. Some of the areas, particularly with text mining, is it is uneven in terms, certain languages we have much more text mining. So we have a lot of applications for mining English. Well, what about Chinese characters? Or what about Arabic? Or what about Japanese? Or what about Spanish languages? I mean, they're not going to have the same patterns or even some of the same letters or characters as the English language. So very interesting area. Just something to think about as you're looking around and you notice the text that's around you. And definitely, if you're in the text mood, yeah, just look at text mining applications, and you can even put it, give yourself healthcare, this is a great way, and maybe if I just say example. There we go. Oh, we'll get generative AI. As I say, it's not always helpful, but yeah, if you're on Google, if you're interested in text mining, pick an area. I'm interested in text mining in healthcare. I'm interested in text mining in marketing. I'm interested in text mining in, I don't know, education, Yeah, but let's see if this gives you, as you say, at this point, you want to be thinking about ideas. And, if you're, rather not do something statistical, and you want to do something, that involves text, this is a great opportunity to explore the area. And again, if you're not interested in using like NLTK or Spacey, there's a ton of packages out there, web-based or stuff that you can download to your laptop. And again, if you start early with an idea, you can find who has some data collections that might be useful. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you're interested in weather. Yeah. So many interesting things. So, kind of think about it and see if you'd like to do something in the text mining area. And as I say, next week we'll move on to some of the other types of data, those videos and images that are getting posted. And so we'll do a couple weeks on the video image analysis. Yes, again, you might find something in that area that you're really interested in playing with. But anyway, that's it. We're out of time. And so, yeah, take some time this weekend to just review the materials under text mining and just to kind of think, yeah, would I like to do a data science project that involves, just seeing what is possible for me to do when it comes to text. And you can start simple with little word counts and then, try some of the other tools and techniques to see how far you can go. Excellent. Well, everybody, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.